First and foremost, I'll just say thank you, because you, first of all, are the wizard, the sage who introduced me to LSD for the first time. And you also have been super helpful in teaching me about psilocybin, how it grows and how it all works. So really just tip my hat to you. You've impacted my life in a huge way by doing so.
I appreciate that. Yeah, let's start with your first time taking acid, because that's kind of an interesting story. I know you were kind of in the middle of you just got your law degree, and you were not. That was kind of your in between phase. You weren't really sure like what you wanted to do. Like with that, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you just got that law degree, and you weren't really certain if that was like the path you wanted to follow.
Yeah.
Is that what kind of prompted your first psychedelic experience?
Yeah, I think so. I had tried to take LSD one time before, a couple years past, and I don't know if I got a bad tab or what, but it didn't work. Like, I had the tab under my tongue and just never felt anything. So I went into it not knowing at all.
I'm having some connection issues now. I don't know if you can hear me, but you're kind of cutting in and out a little bit. I'm just gonna move inside.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I got you. Looks like you got a nice back deck there. Where are you?
I'm at my house.
Nice. Dude, that looks like a great spot.
Yeah, thank you. It's certainly a work in progress, but it's home.
That's all you can ask for.
So then, like, what was your primary like takeaway and experience with that? Like with that, the experience that you underwent when you were kind of having those mixed feelings. Like, did you feel like you got a lot of clarity from that?
Yeah, I feel like LSD really helped me feel the emotions that I had repressed and just get it all out in one kind of burst of, like, the first time I took LSD, man, I was crying. I was like every emotion to the extreme, and it felt extremely healing. That was my experience.
Yeah, that was very much so. Like my first time taking mushrooms, I was in high school, and I cried for probably like an hour and a half. And it's like oddly like it's those experiences that kind of like that stay with you the most, and kind of make you fall in love with it, because it's like a burst of it's like kind of like a burst of therapy. With psilocybin specifically, like in that instance, so like psilocybin is digested in your gut, and it's turned into psilocin, and it's the psilocin that attaches to the serotonin in your neurotransmitters.
Mm-hmm.
And while it increases neurotransmitter connections from like different areas of the brain, which is kind of why people tend to like look at past events from a different perspective, is like a very common thing that people report. And then it is also like the ego death comes from, it is I forgot the term, but your brain's like autopilot. It slows those neurotransmitter connections that you usually have, like that you have on a day-to-day basis, those slow down, and the ones that you've never had before are in an accelerated state. So that's where like a lot of the ego death comes from, because your brain isn't thinking as it normally does. So that's why everyone kind of reports that whole unity aspect, like the feeling of like a collective more so than an independent. Sorry, my cats are going nuts right now.
That's interesting that you brought that up, because that's one of the biggest questions I had for you. People who take psychedelics, it seems like universally, one of the experiences they come back with is I am one with everything. I'm not different from the people beside me. I'm one with the universe, and I'm an inseparable part of that. And So what do you think that is? Do you think it's a quieting of the neural networks and a forming of new connections? Or do you think it's maybe like a layer of consciousness that's getting peeled back and we have a new ability to access it?
I think it's kind of a bit of both, frankly. Kind of touching on all those. It's you're bringing consciousness in, and like that's a whole that's a whole can of worms that it could go in so many different directions. But I totally agree, and it's something that really kind of begs the question: is that the chemical reaction you're feeling, or is it a spiritual experience? And those are two very different things. But I think it's unquestionable that chemical reaction, like how it changes your brain, is certainly what opens up that experience. But again, it begs the question: is it the actual spiritual experience, or is it the chemical alteration that's doing that? Kind of lost my train of thought with that a little bit.
No, you're perfect. And it makes me wonder, is consciousness something that is created by the brain? It's just an offshoot of whatever we have going on upstairs that's helped us survive for however long we've been human? Or is it like our brain is an antenna and we are tuning in to the universal consciousness somehow, some way?
I probably lean more towards the antenna side. I think if you're a believer in that every living thing is conscious and connected to it, and if you're calling consciousness one place or one thing, then it can't be like within everyone's brain. Everyone's brain has access to it, more or less. I think we're kind of diving into like your astral body versus your physical body too at that point. And I think the astral body is the one that has a lot more meaning than the physical body. Because I mean, if you listen to people's near-death experiences, almost no one. And I even have like a friend that I was just in Idaho last weekend. My buddy is an ER nurse. We were talking about this. We were talking about death, and I was telling him how I was telling my girlfriend how like I have so many burning questions and curiosity. Ow, a bite. About death, that in some weird way I'm almost like excited to be on that doorstep, if you will. Not that I want to die or I'm like necessarily looking forward to it, but I'm pretty confident that like in my final moments I'll like have a smile on my face, and I'll be very accepting no matter what the circumstances are. I mean, unless it's something crazy traumatic like being eaten alive, or burned alive, or some just horrific death. Hi, buddy.
Man, but you say something like that to somebody who is not experienced with psychedelic substances.
It's like a shell shock. People's brains have never even contemplated those kind of things. But I mean, back to like what my buddy was saying. He works in ER. He worked at Barnes Jewish in St. Louis. Like he had gunshot wounds on like a nightly basis. Like people died in front of him every single day. Like his very first day on the job, he was telling me how he was resuscitating a 4-year-old and he died in front of him, and he was really shaken up for a couple days. But I mean, that's the job, and he said you kind of get numb to it after a while. But we were talking over the weekend. We were around like a campfire, on mushrooms, drinking some whiskey, like having a good night, and we were talking the whole death conversation, and he says like, dude, I've watched hundreds and hundreds of people die right in front of my face, and not a single one of them looked like they were having a bad experience.
I imagine that, or at least I want to imagine, because you hear so much about the life review or you're floating up towards the white light or whatever. My hope is that the brain just absolutely floods you with psychedelic chemicals, and your last moments are peaceful.
That's where DMT comes in. Dude, you got to relax. that's where DMT comes in, because DMT is a chemical that's in your brain. It's only released 2 times in your life naturally, when you're born and when you die. So I think if anything is like we were talking about earlier, if anything's that gateway to and from consciousness or like a physical or astral body, like I think it'd be that chemical.
You have experience with that?
No, yes and no. So like there was I had a feeling this was going to come up. So I was at like a coworker's bachelor party probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a ton of fun, but it was just like this camping, like almost drug extravaganza. Like his that he ran with, they had and did everything. Like he was a big guy. He was kind of like he loved to experiment around with like a lot of things. So when I first got there, all right, you can sit on my lap. So when I first got there, we started like drinking beers. I did like half a tab of acid, and then like fucking guys were doing all kinds of shit. Like there were nitrous bottles, there was like ecstasy, and like some guys were doing a lot, some guys were like doing a little bit. I'd say I was like in the middle or more towards like the little bit. But then like later in the night, he was telling me like, hey, like one of the guys has DMT, like we're gonna do some DMT later tonight. And I was like nervous because I was like, okay, like you're the only guy here that I'm like really close with, and like if I'm gonna do psychedelics, like it really needs to be like with a group of people that you trust and know well. And like there were just like too many like wild cards of people in the group for me to like really dive into something like that. So when we were like passing it around, like he mixed the D. So there was some like root that we all like smoked a bowl of before, and it was essentially like something like a precursor, like something that you're supposed to do like before that helps heighten the experience. I couldn't tell you what it was. This is the first time I'd even like been around it before. And then like the second time around, everyone takes a hit of that. Then like he puts like a little bit of DMT on top, and then we kind of pass that around. And I just took like the babiest little hit ever. And like the only thing I really experienced was like there were some visuals. We were in the middle of the woods. Like we walked away from our campsite, so it was dark. We were well away from the campsite, and I was just experiencing a little bit of visuals. I didn't experience any crazy outer body, anything like that. But
I had the same experience the first time that I smoked DMT. The first time it was super short-lived. Saw like a little bit of visuals with my eyes closed, but I didn't feel like I got the breakthrough. And then
and that was something I was very like kind of apprehensive of in that scene. Like it wasn't really something I wanted at that time.
Yeah.
But what was about like your second or previous times?
And then the second time I brewed a tea out of just root bark, and that is a completely different experience, because then I was fully convinced that I was dying, and I was laying on my bathroom floor with my dog, and I'm like, this is the end, buddy. Like, I'm gonna see you on the other side. But it's like, it's hard to explain in those moments of like the very height of a psychedelic experience, the kind of knowledge and wisdom that you feel like you're grasping for just a handful of seconds, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
But it felt for just a glimpse where I was like, oh, I understand. And then it's gone just like that.
Yeah. My brother and I have like talked about doing it. Like it's kind of like, so like what stage and like where was that, like post college? Were you in your career at that time? Like when, like what kind of timeline in your life, what was going on in your life like when you did that?
This was like 2 months ago.
Oh, really?
So doing good, just really experimenting with what it was and utter curiosity.
Yeah, my brother and I have talked about it, and like it's something that we kind of want to do. Like we were willing to like kind of push it off and do it later in life. We both want to do it like together, or like separately but together. And I'd love like some of your insight on that as well. Like, was there anyone that you wish was there? Are you glad you did it alone? Like, was there someone with you?
So I did this one solo, and every time that I've done it since has been solo, and brewed the tea out of it, which tastes super nasty, and it makes you throw up, like violently purge. So
Wow.
in that sense, it's been like not super enjoyable, and more so in my mind, like I'm here to learn a lesson about myself, a lesson about God and the universe in some roundabout way. But I don't think after doing this like little tea experiment probably 5 times now, I won't ever do it again, just because it's so hard on the stomach. And like I was fasting for a day or two before it just to like
Wow.
get the full experience. And yeah, I really don't recommend it that highly unless you're like really all in. Because I know to smoke the chemical, it's like you're in and out in 15 minutes, but drinking it, like you're stuck there for a good 6 to 8 hours.
Wow. That, yeah. That would be a long time. I mean, is it kind of like when you're like tripping really hard on like mushrooms or LSD, like you kind of hit a point where you just like want it to be over? Did you experience much of that?
So I will still to this day say I've broken through more with psilocybin and mushrooms than any other chemical that I've experienced. But to answer your question, yeah, there's that moment where I'm like, I am so ready for this to be done, but I know that I have to just sit here and take it for a little
Yeah.
bit more. And that's almost part of it too, because I'm like, I
Yeah.
got myself into this, and now I have to just sit in the
Right
moment
now.
and ride it out.
Yeah. It's kind of like a bittersweet, because like I've had experiences where like you really hit that second win, and like on like a 12-hour acid trip, like you're still 12 hours in and like you're good to go. You maybe had like a little bit of downtime or like a lower spot later. Like there was one 4th of July, my brother and I each took like a tab or a tab and a half of acid, and it was like some pretty strong stuff. And like we were up all night. I mean, we started off lighting off fireworks for the family, and then it was like the super moon, so like it was the brightest moon of the year too. It was on the 4th of July. It was awesome. We were at the lake, and um after the fireworks, everything kind of calmed down. Like we were like both like meditating on opposite ends of the dock, like underneath the super moon for like a couple hours. And then we got back together and we were just chatting probably till like 4:30 in the morning. Then we decided like, all right, let's try to get some sleep. We were sleeping in the same bedroom that weekend, and we laid our heads down for like 15 minutes, and we're like, yep, can't sleep. Like sun was starting to come up, like, all right, want to go wakeboarding? We're like, yeah, sure. So we loaded up the boat, and then we went out wakeboarding at like 5:30 a.m., watched the sun come up, and that was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Man,
Not
that sounds
like
amazing.
it was the morning after 4th of July, and I've seriously never seen. I could probably count on one hand how many times I've seen the lake that flat. It was like a beautiful golden sunrise, not a single cloud in the sky. We were out in the middle of the main channel wakeboarding. And I mean, neither of us were like throwing any tricks or doing anything like that. It was just kind of carving in and out, just like some surface tricks, just like really kind of enjoying life. Um, and it was probably like one of the, I think if I asked him, he'd probably say the same thing, that it was like probably one of the best experiences that he and I have ever shared. It was really cool.
That's amazing that you, one, have a brother, and two, that you have a
Two
brother.
brothers.
Oh, you have
twins.
2 brothers?
Yeah, I got 2 twin brothers.
That's even better. But also to have that experience with a brother who's interested in the same thing that you are, and
Yeah.
to experience on such a deep level that very, very few people get that, man. You're very lucky to have that.
I know. Yeah, we've the 3 of us have done it together like a handful of times. Like during COVID, it was one of our like first times, and Like we went down to the lake and just had a fucking day. I mean, made a bonfire and we were just kind of dicking around all day long, and it was hilarious. It sounds dumb, but I think like the funniest is like you do those like little small. You find yourself doing these like silly dumb activities and stuff, and like we were looking at each other through binoculars from like 30 feet away, and reason like it was just belly laughing. It was like the funniest thing ever. Like it's like those images I'll never get out of my head, and like I look back, I'm like, why were we laughing so hard at that? But it's a lot of fun.
You brought up meditating on the dock, and I'm curious what your experience has been, like closed eye individuals that come with that and the introspection that comes with that versus open. Because I've heard in like a real medical clinical setting, in the handful of places where you can get psilocybin therapy now, which is really great. But I've heard that they will like put a blindfold on you and you're supposed to like go inward with the experience.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, any psychedelics are definitely like a lean forward type deal instead of like a lean back. I mean, it's so true. If you've ever heard like someone, like you can always tell someone who's having like a good time on their drugs versus someone who's having a bad times on drugs based on like the way they walk. Person having a good time is walking around like this. Person having a bad time is walking around like this.
Huh.
So it's very much that like lean forward or lean back, like you said, or lean in versus lean out. I predominantly mine was more. It was kind of a mix. I was like opening my eyes at some points. I was closing my eyes. We were there for like 2 hours. Like there, a lot of it was like I'd just close my eyes for a good 20, 30 minutes and try to dive in, but it's kind of tough at some points. It's easy to get to that like relaxing state, but sometimes it's very hard to like completely make your mind blank. Especially like when you have like a powerful substance like that in your system. But like I'd say when the eyes open aspect, it was just like a lot more appreciation and gratefulness, just for life and experience in the experience in general.
Yeah. Well, it's wild how under the influence of these things you can walk around, and we already mentioned the feeling of being one with nature, but even just the appreciation, like holy shit, that tree that I'm staring at and walking next to is actually alive the same way that I'm alive, and we're all here at the same time having this experience, and the colors are so vivid and bright, and it's a shame almost that we don't get that all day every day, unless maybe you're a monk.
Yeah, it's like a lot of brain training. I would say I wouldn't say I ever necessarily had like a negative outlook on life, and I think I've generally always been appreciative and grateful, but I would certainly attribute a lot of that, like of how I feel now, to past psychedelic experiences and just having experimented with the substances throughout the mature years of my life so far.
I'll ask you this, not to cut you off.
Go.
Have you had a negative or a challenging trip before? And if so, how did you manage that or find your way through it?
I wouldn't say I've had any like none that like really jump out as like overall like negative. I'd say it's more anything that I've like attributed to like having like a bad trip or a bad experience with is usually from like the group. And I'm glad it's like a lesson I learned kind of early on. I think it's kind of a lesson that everyone learns if you've done it. If you can count on two hands how many times you've done it, everyone's had an experience where they do it in a group, and it maybe it could just be like one or like multiple individuals in the group that you really just don't you don't vibe with all of a sudden. Like they could be like your friends, like your roommates, and then for some reason, like you don't want to be around them. Like you look at them very differently, like in that experience, and even like after. It's very eye opening. Like I know a lot of people that have like tripped with friends, and then they're kind of like looking around, like not really enjoying themselves, and they're like, why am I hanging out with this group? Like I was just having this conversation with a coworker. Like he was sharing his story about how like when he was like in high school, he was doing it with like his like best friends at the time, and he was kind of had that epiphany, like, what man, like these aren't like the people I should be like surrounding myself with. While while I'm doing this to have more of like a spiritual experience and to grow some like appreciation, these guys just like want to sit and stare at cartoons because like the colors and shit are crazy. Like it's very interesting. Like it's certainly something, like if someone was doing it for like the first time and they want to do it with a group of friends, I think it's something that you should like sit down with and discuss with the group. Like, what do you hope to get out of this? What do you want to experience? Because like if you're just in it to like trip and see and feel different, not think different, then I think you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And like those colors really, that really shows through the individuals as well. But yeah, I think the only like bad experiences I've had, maybe like 2 times where I did it with like the wrong group. Yeah, and it could certainly be like if you don't know someone well enough, it can just kind of really throw off the whole experience. I'd say like overall, it's like really just like a vibe thing.
Yeah.
But it's surprising how powerful it is, because like all day long you can like live with this person for like months on end, and maybe have like your slight irritations with that person, but like as soon as you dive into like a trip like that, it's like, oh man, I gotta all of a sudden like, man, I gotta go do my own thing. I'm not enjoying this. I gotta go outside. Like I gotta get out of my apartment. Just gotta walk around. Like I'm gonna Irish goodbye.
It peels back the layers and
Yeah.
shows you exactly what is hidden underneath your intuition that you've just either been ignoring or maybe not picked up on yet.
And it's like yourself, and you kind of like see through others as well. Like it's not that you can sense maybe like what someone's feeling, but you can sense like their prerogatives, and like their intuition.
Mm.
And it's really powerful. It's something that it's not even like a thought. It's like a sudden knowledge. It's like a fact that's just kind of ingrained in your brain immediately.
Do you think it's possible that some people, or maybe all people, and we just haven't tapped into it, have some sort of psychic ability or ability to connect with each other on a plane of knowledge like that?
I mean, you can kind of look into like all these documentaries where like about like the CIA's research, like with LSD, and like their manifestation research, and like their telepathic research. Like it's fucking fascinating. The movie, I'm sorry, not the movie, the TV show Stranger Things is actually based off loosely based off a true story of the CIA conducting telekinesis and telepathic experiments with kids. It's called the Montauk Project, and I mean, this is kind of getting deep, and this is like very much so like a conspiracy. I'm not necessarily saying I believe or don't believe in it. But if you've ever heard of like, so Montauk is an island off New York, if I'm not mistaken. And so like over the past like 2 decades, 3 or 4 of these like crazy, bizarre, like dog bird looking hybrid creatures have like washed up on shore. They're called like the Montauk Monster, and it's happened like over 3 times. You can look it up. But the whole like the Montauk Project, I think is what it's called. Like it was declassified. I only learned about it this year, so I don't know exactly when it was declassified. But reading up on it is crazy. They were doing these experiments as kids, but like there were also CIA operatives that were doing the same thing in the 70s. They would like, that was how they were like during the Cold War. That was how like a lot of like spying on Russia was done. It was like astral projection. I think is the term. I could be incorrect, but it's basically like a type of meditation where you put yourself, like they were just imagining like this facility, and like they were in such a deep state of meditation and connectivity that they were able to like okay, like I'm the Russian government, like where am I going to put this facility? Like, oh, I'm going to put it here. Okay, what's the layout? Like, and you like find the layout of it, and you find out, or like you'll be like given a picture like on a map and like showed exactly where it is on Earth, and you put yourself in there and you're able to like visualize. And it was remarkable, like some of the information they were able to pull from these agents in a state of meditation. Come back, and they would be able to like show the layout of certain facilities and all kinds of stuff.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean that's like very much off like the question in hand, but that was just like kind of the first thing that jumped to mind.
And I believe that myself. And we're on the topic of CIA and brain enhancement, things like that. I've gone down that rabbit hole myself.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Have you heard of the Monroe Institute before? So there's this guy, Bob Monroe, who created this institute doing a similar thing. And he created this like brainwave technology, essentially, where you put headphones in, and as you're sleeping, your brain goes through different wave states, delta, theta, whatever, I don't know. But it plays like a different frequency in your ears, and you're laying there meditating, and you're listening to these frequencies, and it puts your brain in a state of sleep, like deep REM sleep, but your mind is still conscious. And the goal for it is supposed to be, like you said, astral projection, manifestation, and having these thoughts and deep intuitions come to you from a higher level of consciousness that you wouldn't have access to in your normal daily waking life. And the CIA did a big research project and investigation into it.
So while you bring up like the different frequencies, I did used to fall asleep to like theta frequency playlist for like a long time. And, like, dude, like just falling asleep to it was very easy. Like, cause I was really able to just kind of unwind and like relax in bed. And I did notice like that I was waking up, I was feeling very well rested every morning. And like I couldn't really speak too much about like any like dream experiences or anything like that. I didn't necessarily have like a goal in mind with it other than like just getting good sleep. Mm-hmm. Like have you experimented with any of that stuff?
Like astral projection or like manifestation through sleep and dreams?
Any of the above, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I used to fall asleep to this tape of a guy who's saying like essentially it's like a money manifestation. Like I'm attracting money to me. I'm increasing my money by whatever through different avenues and lanes. And I would just fall asleep because like I wanted to change my mindset as far as that goes. But yeah, I've experimented with that myself, and I think it's really cool to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think general manifestation is something that everyone should practice. I think everyone does practice it, but maybe not necessarily like in doing so. Or like, I think if you kind of have like a negative connotation along a lot of things, that's really kind of what you're manifesting. Like, I don't think you should really be expecting good things to come your way if you think negatively about like most aspects of your life, or you don't expect things to work out. And if you don't expect things to work out, then they're almost guaranteed not to, I think.
Dude, I actually sat down before I injected those mushrooms into the jar. I was like, this is going to work. I'm going to do it the right way. And I'm like seeing in my mind's eye the mycelium growing. And lo and behold, like I expected to do it the right way, expected it to work out, and now I have them sitting in jars and they're white and fuzzy.
Oh,
But I feel like having that mindset instead of, oh, I'm scared, it's my first time, I'm gonna fuck it up, I'm not smart enough to figure it out, just being nervous, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was telling you. It really is. The prep work that goes into it is just ridiculous. I mean, like when we were doing it, we would like, so I would do it in a closet of like my bedroom, and like hours and hours, like sometimes like 24 hours in advance, I would start spraying down the closet with like Lysol or just like a harmless disinfectant to get any airborne immunities out of the way, and do it like a couple times a day. And then I would do it like an hour before, and I would spray a shit ton. And then before then, like I would be doing that to the same room I was in too. So like from like my apartment was like the unsanitized zone, and then my room was sanitized, and then you go into like the closet, which is very sanitized. And it's something that you don't want to like slack on, because like having those, like finding those other funguses like in your grow is just like heartbreaking, because you're talking about like months of work, tons of time, research, money, like just kind of all goes out the window, and you have to like, you can't even reuse that substrate. You have to throw all that substrate away. You got to start brand new with that. You have to clean the shit out of your container. It sucks. It happens like it's happened a few times to me, and like it's very like, it's discouraging in the moment, but I mean you learn from it. I mean, I think like my first two were unsuccessful, and then like the third one, when you finally get it, it's amazing. It's like, it's an awesome feeling. Like I'll never forget, like, peeking through and like seeing my first mushroom growing. I was on cloud nine, dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Something else I've noticed with growing them is that it's like LSD doesn't really have much of a half-life to my knowledge, but psilocybin certainly does. It's like as soon as you pick them, like I've picked them and eaten them like fresh, just he had like a cap, and I was tripping way harder than I was expecting to. Because like, I mean, if you dry it out and weigh it out, like a cap is like a quarter of a gram, something like that, like your average cap size. And it felt like I ate like 2 grams. So like, but like, and then which also makes sense, because like I've eaten like dried out ones that I'd been sitting on for 3 or 4 months, and then you eat 2 grams worth and it feels like 1 gram or half a gram. So when you pick yours, pick it on a day or a night where like you can try one, and I would highly recommend just eating like a fresh one, because it is a very different experience.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to send me a couple of yours too. I'd be eager to try them.
Hell yeah. I mean, you've been prepping me for this process now. Like I finally took the leap and jumped into it. But I remember we were talking about this like last summer, and I was just kind of getting details from you.
Yeah, I remember that one. So how long ago did you really like first start doing like your actual prep, like get your container, get your spores, stuff like that? Because I think you put your spores in your like jar substrate and like let the mycelium grow for like what, 6 weeks?
I have no idea. I'm still waiting for the whole jars to actually colonize and turn totally white. Is it about 6 weeks? How long that takes?
I think so, if memory serves. It's been a few years since I've done it, but yeah, I think it was about 6 weeks in those jars, and then you let them free in your container, and then like usually a few weeks after that they'll start popping up, and then you kind of let it go until you want to stop. As long as you're like checking, like just looking. Do you have a clear container, or is it like black, or can you see through it?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, good. Yeah, then you should be able to kind of like check it out. You got like a light and everything, like heater, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm like the Midwest Grow Kits. I don't know if what you've come or the kit that you've had, it comes with like a little black mat underneath it that you plug in and turn it up.
Okay, yeah, I've only done like homemade ones, so I'll go to like Home Depot or like Lowe's or Walmart and just buy all this stuff. I used like a double, so like one container would be full of water, and then my clear container would sit in that, and then in the one that had the water, I would put like little spacers underneath so that the water could get underneath and on the side, and then I put aquarium heaters in that to keep that temperature.
Okay, so I'm down here in New Mexico, and it's hotter than Satan's nutsack. So I just have them in a spare bedroom, and I just close the air conditioning vent. And so naturally, with the heat outside and the fan off,
that's probably gonna be good then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe get like a thermometer in there just so like I don't know if there's too hot. I don't really remember the ideal temperature range. I think I was heating the water to like 78 degrees or 80, something like that. Yeah, like then like I'm sure you got a grow kit, so I'm sure like that's kind of got everything you need. But like I remember like making the filter for one was like an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because we had like a fan and like both ends had to be like filtered just to make sure nothing else was getting in, but it was still getting fresh air. But also, and then you got like a little like bottle cap that I cut off, cut a hole in the top, cut the top of like a soda bottle off, and like I hot glued that down. So whenever I needed to like spray with moisture, I would just unscrew that little cap and I would like spray and put it right back on. So it was only exposed for about like a second or two. And like those were like the times where like I wouldn't always like do like the Lysol thing, like make sure the air was like disinfected like an hour before. I would try to, but every once in a while I would just kind of like screw it off, squirt, screw it on, kind of hold my breath, make it like minimizing any air movement around just to make sure nothing else gets in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I used distilled water as well.
Okay. Yeah. What is it where there's people like us where like in my spare time I'm growing mushrooms in my closet, then there's other people who are like, I'm just on TikTok and watching people dance.
Yeah, I mean it's different breeds, man. Different strokes for different folks. I think my girlfriend's very much in like that TikTok one.
Yeah.
Like I'll get sucked in like the Instagram reels, but none of it's like dancing shit. Most of my stuff is like cars or mechanics, engineering. I follow like a lot of physics forums, so like I'll get sucked into like a lot of rabbit holes with that. Yeah, it's really interesting how like your algorithms just grow and change. Like I deleted my Instagram for about a month or so, but like I still run our company's page, but I still found myself scrolling on that, and it didn't take like 3 days before I started seeing the same shit pop up that like my normal page would be on.
It's wild. Like if you pay more attention to one thing than the other, it's like automatically it makes a shift.
Yeah.
So weird. So it's like it knows you better than you know you.
It knows what you want to watch better than you do. Because like if I were to sit down and just open up like a YouTube app, I'm like, fuck, like what do I want to watch? Like, I mean, it just picks for you, it just shows you the shit.
Which is awesome. I'm mindlessly on YouTube all the time. Just open it the fuck with it and then be like, huh, okay.
Yeah. So I went through a phase where I would love watching like I would love seeing like tours of production plants like on YouTube. Now we're way off topic, but
that's beyond random. What is this?
So I went through this phase where I was loving watching like different production facilities, like mainly like car manufacturers or like small parts manufacturers, like firearm manufacturers. But like the one that I always went back to and I thought was like the coolest thing ever. It's like a 30-minute video. It shows you the whole production facility in Munich, Germany of the Porsche Taycan, which is their like electric sport, which is their electric car. It is mind blowing. The robotics that go into that. I mean, it looks like close to like $1 billion setup. It's remarkable. Like, and it's like I'm in like a cabinetry industry, and like we have a very much so like industrialized shop. So like we try to utilize as much automation as we can. We have a CNC machine, which does a lot, but it's barely a step in like terms of automation. It's something like I want to strive for in this business. So part of me is also just like, what do car manufacturers do? Like, what do other people like? What do these facilities look like? Like one of my mentors in the industry is actually a guy. He's only been in the industry for like 3 or 4 years, but he took a $2 million a year cabinet shop and turned it into an $8 million a year cabinet shop because he came from an automotive assembly line background. He used to design assembly lines at automotive plants, and he's taken that knowledge and applied it to this industry and fucking exploded his business.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, sorry, we got super sidetracked on that one.
No, that is cool. But it's people like that who kick down the doors and innovate and make creative new ways to do the same thing. And then, like you said, you've tripled or quadrupled your.
That was him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. Like, coming from a completely different industry and then being able to do that is just it's very impressive. And it's like, it just kind of goes to show that no matter what your previous experience is, like you'll always, even if you change careers or change industries, like you're always going to be applied to something else. And I think that's just kind of a general life lesson as well, which now we can tie back into psychedelics, is like once you're able to look back on those past experiences, you may react differently to future situations.
And no one is inherently more you than you. No one has had the same life experiences, the ups and downs, the lefts and rights as you. And that gives each and every one of us a lot of inherent value. Even if there are 8 billion of us on this planet, we each have a little thing that we can offer to society.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's going to think and react differently to every situation. And there's not always like a right or wrong way to do it. It's your own personal response or thought to the situation. Yeah, it's like in friend groups, work environments, like it's really important to have like a diverse group, I think, of like people that like to think differently, maybe people that have different priorities in life. I mean, don't hang out with like a bunch of bums, but like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Whether that's true or not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you hang out with people who lift weights all the time and that's all that they want to do, you're probably going to be in the gym a lot and get big.
Yeah. And well, the same goes for people that just want to smoke and drink or play video games, do whatever the fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful. And I mean, I've been seeing this like in a bunch of different ways in my life. I mean, talking to people who are successful, talking to people who have things that I want, like, okay, pick their brain and figure out how they did it and then apply that to my life. I feel like as young men, being the age that we are, that's going to be more and more important because we can have influence anywhere with the internet. You can either watch people who influence you for the better or influence you for the worse.
Yeah. So how long have you been in New Mexico for now?
Going on 2 months.
Okay. I mean, how is it? What's it like? I mean, I assume you don't know many people out there, if any.
Yeah.
Like what brought you out there? I mean, how is it? How is it like making friends in like a new place?
So this is my like 3rd pretty big move in the last couple years. I'm here because my girlfriend is from New Mexico. She has family in Albuquerque. And so we decided just to move here, settle down. And I'm a big fan of just moving and jumping around, having new experiences. And it challenges me because I don't know anybody here and I have to get out of my comfort zone. I've met people at the gym. I started a martial arts membership at this club, and that's helped me meet some cool people. But
What style of martial arts? Sorry to interrupt.
kickboxing,
Oh, nice.
yeah. But the biggest piece of advice that I got was when I was living in this super little town in Montana when I first moved up there 2 years ago. And this girl said to me, no matter where you are, what location or stage in life, figure out what you like to do and then find people who like to do that. There's somebody out there who's interested in the same thing as you, no matter where you are. And if you can't find them in your small little town or even in your big city, there's Facebook groups, there's Instagram, there's all sorts of ways to meet people. It's just about getting out there and being social and putting yourself in some uncomfortable spots.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think of like kind of like a high school, like middle school age, because like you're so many people are so worried about their image or their impression, or like hanging out with like a certain group of kids, and like your ego is very influenced at that age. Like everyone I think wants to go back and like kind of punch their middle school self in the face and like just yell at them, you know. But I think that's some people, but I've seen like some people that just kind of never shake it. Like there's always those people that you grew up with that are always concerned about their image and like always have to be like, I think it's those people that like kind of post their every single doing on like Instagram, like on Instagram or Snapchat too. It's like they're so worried about like how they're perceived. Um, and I think like looking back, like, you know, like middle school, high school age, like I knowing what I know now, like I don't know if I would hang out with like all the same people like I did.
Yeah,
Because you don't really like follow your passions, you more so follow like you do like what your whole friend group wants to do, or the people that you associate yourselves with most.
yeah,
And sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Um, like I've certainly had friend groups that have like pushed me out of my comfort zone, and then like but then I've had friend groups push me out of my comfort zone, and something that I look back, I'm like, still don't like that, still wish I didn't do that, you know.
mhm,
But that's how she
yeah.
rolls.
I mean, that's like self-autonomy, knowing our own self-worth. And as far as the people who do go out of their way to seek validation, post on Instagram, whatever it might be, I feel like instead of doing that and making such an effort to show other people, oh, hey, this is me, I'm cool, I'm this, I'm that, put that effort into yourself and grow yourself in some way that's positive. And before you know it, you will be cool. People will respect you. And it just happens naturally.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to be around someone that's just unapologetically authentic.
Mhm.
That was something that like one of my college professors really like strive for. Like she's like, if you're gonna be anything, just be authentic, be yourself. Like that's the only way you're gonna find success. That's the only way you're gonna find happiness.
For sure. Yeah. And
Yeah.
when you're not staying true to yourself, like it feels weird.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
It's easy to fall into like a depressive state. I mean, like man, like college was. I found myself, especially like junior and senior year, like really, it was really like towards the end of college. Like I found like I was like the most depressed. Um, I mean, I'm sure so many people feel that way, but it's just such a bizarre state. Like you're surrounded by thousands of people all the time. You're going out to bars where you see hundreds of people, massive auditoriums. I mean, you're always. I mean, with things like GPA, you have no choice but to like be comparing yourself to the guy next to you.
Mhm.
Especially like especially in academics.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember in college walking to classes, and it would be like a little sidewalk going one way, another sidewalk going the opposite way. Like you said, surrounded by thousands of people. But everyone walking by was just either head in their phone or had headphones on, and nobody
Yeah.
is speaking. I would just
No.
look around like, what is happening here?
Yeah. I mean, I would always, I mean, it's like I've always been like a big advocate of like if I want to talk to someone, I won't have headphones in. If you don't want to talk, just headphones in,
Yeah.
beeline down the path. Even at like the gym sometimes, like if I'm walking from like one machine to another, like I'll take my headphones out because I feel like that makes you like more approachable. I mean, I'm always open to meeting new people and making friends anywhere I go. And frankly, like the gym's like an easy place to like meet new people.
It is.
Like, yeah, you were saying you've met like some people. It's so easy to strike up conversation.
Yeah. And I think people want to be approached. Like if someone was to come up to you and maybe give you a compliment or ask something about you that they're genuinely curious about, it's flattering. It feels good. Like, oh, someone else noticed me. The
Yeah.
same goes to you. Like there's no reason to be scared to approach people because like most people are happy that someone else is interested in them or noticing them.
Yeah. I mean, I think 9 out of 10 times I strike up conversation with someone at the gym, I make a comment about their shoes.
Mm.
Like this last week, there's this guy I see like all the time. I was walking out of the locker room as he was walking in, and he had like the Hoska running shoes.
Mhm.
So I just like looked down and I was like, hey, like how you like those things? Like I've been looking at like a new pair of running shoes. Like my brother has those. He raves about them. Like, what do you think about them? And then like we introduced each other, and like ever since then it's been like a hey, what's up, Sean? Hey, Connor.
And we need that because most of our days are working. And if you go to a gym or whatever other environment you might go to after a day of work, like you need a little bit of social interaction with people to keep yourself sane, even if it is just a what's up or what'd you do today. It doesn't have to be like what we're doing now where we're getting deep into our souls. Just a little touch up here and there.
I go to Planet Fitness, and like I always notice like when I walk in and the person at the front desk doesn't say hi or like say like have a good workout, I just like walk away. I feel like a little empty because I'm so accustomed to it because it happens like every time. So when it doesn't happen, it's like oh
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's little things that we can do to just give off good impressions to people. Have a smile on your face. Like look somebody in the eye.
This reminds me. So this guy is so funny. He created a bot that would Snapchat this girl. She was like some influencer. It would Snapchat message her like good morning, and it would like always have like some variation like good morning sunshine, good morning beautiful, like you're amazing, have a great day. It was like every single morning, and like she never responded to a single one of them. And then he did it for over a year straight, and then all of a sudden stopped. And then for like the next week, all this girl posted about was how she wasn't getting these messages anymore and how she missed them so much, and she didn't even respond to a single one of them throughout the whole year. And like she had grown so accustomed to the compliment that like like that good morning during the time, like I mean this is a girl that had like I don't know, like 500,000 followers or something like that. It was very influential. Obviously, it gets a lot of attention, but like that one that she was getting every single day, but she never acknowledged. All of a sudden, it went away, and it like completely ruined her whole week. She was posting about it like every day. It was freaking crazy.
I mean, that's true for people as well, just our day-to-day relationships. Like how much do we take for granted? Girlfriend, parent, friend, pet. It's like these people, like they will be gone someday and we'll miss them. So what does that say about just the way we treat people day to day?
Yeah, I mean, it's fuck. Even just like going out of town, like for like a weekend, like I always can't wait to see my girlfriend.
Mhm.
But like my brothers too, like I can't wait to like get back and see them. Like uh like my cousin, like I live with my cousin, so I always like look back. I always look forward to just getting back home, chilling. Um, yeah, even, but it can be even like when you're doing something awesome. Like it doesn't have to just be like a work trip. Um, like even when I was like in Idaho, I was like really wishing that my brother was there like the whole time
Mhm.
because like he had done trips with some of the friends that I had been with before, and like my buddy that had us all out there, he's like, "Oh, dude, Cooper should have come." I was like, "Fuck, I wish I thought of that before right now."
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit of healthy distance can go a long way for relationships with people. Kind of puts it into perspective.
Yeah. Well, I think my cousin and I are gonna go shoot some pool here in a little bit, but I would be very down for like a part two of this.
Hell yeah.
Cool, man. Um, Great to see you. Thanks for having me on. Um, it was a lot of fun.
Can you see me now?
I can see you now. Yeah. So like when my computer died and I brought it back on, I could see you. I thought, yeah, I said that when I first opened it up.
I was wondering because like it felt like you were making eye contact with me. And I was like,
Yes.
if he's just looking at a blank screen, like he's really convincing me that
He's really focused on that black screen. Yeah.
well, dude, I respect you so much and I'm so curious about like your experiences and your wisdom and your spirituality. Like I straight up wrote down a bunch of questions that I genuinely have about your experiences and what you've learned, and we didn't get to all of them, so we'll definitely have to do a part two.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean shit, I get on a plane at like 2 p.m. Saturday. Like I think anytime before then I'm cool. Like if you wanted to do it like tomorrow night, Friday night, Saturday
Sweet.
morning, like or when I get back. I mean shit, my girlfriend and I got these like mushroom chocolate bars that I'm taking on the plane. I brought them to Idaho too. A couple of them melted all the way, so the servings are going to be a little questionable.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you're taking those before you get on a plane?
Oh God, no, no. Once we get there,
Oh, okay.
I
Not the
I
same.
have thought about that. I'm just like, I don't want to be confined to a seat. That sounds
Yeah.
terrible.
I I won't keep you long here. Like the last time I flew, I took edibles, and I was like fully convinced this plane is going to go down. And I was like, it was scary, but at the same time, I was like, this is probably good and healthy for me to understand. One, I'm flying through the air on a giant tube of metal. Two, I could definitely die doing this.
It
And
is, yeah.
three,
It's kind of
like just that perspective, it was like, what the fuck? I'm actually flying through the air thousands of miles per hour, and I'm just sitting in this chair next to some dude wearing a fake Louis Vuitton mask, and like
airports are weird, man.
they are.
It's like you sit down on a plane. It's like this literally is the most random combination of people you could imagine.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it doesn't matter what airline you fly. Um, Dude, I think in my last 30 plus flights, I don't think I've got on a plane without weed or some sort of psychedelic.
Why
I think
wouldn't
I
oh,
dude, like everyone like I fly with thinks like, are you crazy? Like, dude, you're gonna get in trouble. I'm like, no, I'm not. Watch.
yeah, I don't like to travel without
there
edibles.
was there was when I was flying back into the US from Peru like a few years ago, and I was gone for like 3 weeks. And it was a long flight back from Lima to Dallas Fort Worth. And on that flight, I had this dream that I had like that I had cocaine, like a bag of cocaine in my wallet. Um, like I'm not much of like a coke guy or fan. I do like once a year, maybe twice a year. But like when we were down there, it was insanely cheap. It was like US currency. compared to like a US currency, it was about like $10 a gram is like what you could get it for. So we were doing like a little bit of it, but like on my flight back, I had a dream that I opened up my wallet and I had like multiple bags in there, and I was like freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to go through customs, because like usually you go to the airport, you go through security for any domestic flight and you're good to go from there. But like when you fly back in the United States, you have to go through security and customs again, which is like a way more intense. Like TSA, it's way different from just going through security like when you get to any like domestic airport. If you've ever had like gone through customs. After it's like I woke up, I kid you not, I get off my flight and I'm walking down the hallway to customs, and this big fat Texas customs agent calls me out by name in the middle of the hallway. He's like, "Are you Connor Gass?" I'm like, yeah. And then he starts walking with me and asking me all these questions. Like I was completely like picked out of this itinerary. Like, oh, this solo traveler has been in Peru for 2 weeks by himself. Like, yeah, he's probably bringing something back. And so, like, he was walking with me. He was asking me all kinds of questions. Like, so, like, what were you doing in Peru? I was like, I'm like, my heart sank. Like, I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I knew I didn't have anything on me, but I was like petrified. And he's just like asking me all these questions about like, so like, what were you doing there? I was like, oh, it was like a surf trip mostly. Like flew in like here, then we flew to there, then we took a bus to here, train to here, yada yada yada. Then like we spent like the last week like up on like the north coast in this beach house. It's like, so you're traveling alone? Like I traveled alone, but like I met a group down there. We all flew in from they were mostly from the East Coast. There's one guy from LA that we met there. But then I eventually kind of like snapped out of it after like he'd asked me like 6 or 7 questions. I'm like, do I have to answer these? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, I'd prefer to just keep walking then. He's like, oh, that's fine. And then of course, as soon as I actually get to customs, they're like, yeah, you've been selected for a strip search. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. That was the first time I ever like went through that, and that was not fun.
First
they
time
like
you
completely
up your ass.
No, they didn't stick anything up my ass, but like they put me through like the body scanner, and then they just had me like stripped down. It's like my short. They like I had like took my shirt off. They took me into another room. I was still wearing my shorts, but they were like feeling everything.
Wow.
Like and karate chop between my butt cheeks. I was so pissed. Like it was like, what can you do? It's like randomly selected. I'm like, I don't know what saying no does in this situation.
Huh. That's crazy, dude. I feel like that's a good way to end it. That's a good story.
Yeah. All right, man. I'll see you later. I look forward to the next one. Shoot me a text. I'd love to find a time with you soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for being willing to do it. Have a good night.
Absolutely. This is fun, man.
Of course.
All right.
All right. Night,
have a great rest of your week, dude.
Peace.
Peace.